This is MaxPreps Friday Night Live, powered by American Family Insurance.
Steve Spiewak, you've got some updates for us, right? I think more like a kicker.
So we can't have a show without a Derrick Henry watch based on the fact that he's approaching the 50-some-odd year record of Ken Hall, the all-time national leading rusher. Derrick Henry played a very good Trinity team tonight and was limited, guys, to 240 yards.
Oh, terrible game. Terrible.
With at least 2 games remaining, he needs 500 and I believe 15 yards, if my math is right, to surpass Ken Hall. Here's what's interesting for Yulee is that they are on the road for their final home game. He's rushed for over 500 yards already this season. What I think is going to happen is I expect him to probably rush for 300 or 400 yards next week. I'm kind of penciling him in for that. And then my guess is he will want to break the record at home in Yulee's first playoff game. So there is a bye between their game to end the regular season and their playoff game. So there's a week off. So in 2-3 weeks, we're going to be looking at possibly a new all-time national rushing king.
Oh, I like to hear that. I love it when we get to hear about new and people breaking records.
Records are made to be broken. But I tell you, and we've talked about this a lot on this show, the Kelvin Taylor, Derrick Henry saga right there. And Kelvin Taylor recognized as the Florida State high school record holder, but Derrick Henry recognized as the national record holder because they're not counting Kelvin Taylor's 8th grade season. So who holds the record? 2 different people will claim that.
Break the record. That's all what I'm about.
Right.
Breaking records. Let's go outside, though, and take a live look and check in on one of the games brought to you by PlayOnSportsNetwork.com. We've got Eastlake versus Olympian. Olympian up 14, Eastlake 3. They're in the first quarter right now.
And both these teams in the San Diego section, they're meeting in a battle for the Chula Vista bragging rights. Both these teams from Chula Vista. Olympian beat Eastlake last year. Final score in that one, 16-7. So this year, they get the game back at home. And at least early on, they're doing the same thing to Eastlake this year that they did last year, Steve.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup. We've seen several very good San Diego football programs during the season so far this year. Interesting note about San Diego high school football. Across town earlier today, Mission Bay High School actually retired the jersey of running back Arian Foster. You guys may have heard of him, kind of an NFL star now.
He's turned out okay, hasn't he?
Just a little star. Come on.
But the running back lineage from San Diego is remarkable, guys. We're looking at Marcus Allen, Reggie Bush, Dylan Baxter, who hasn't panned out quite yet, Terrell Davis, Ricky Williams. I mean, it's like they grow running backs on trees down there in San Diego. So just a very, very talent-laden area. And here are 2 very good football teams.
You know, Eastlake has made the playoffs the past 6 seasons. And, you know, they certainly, it would not be all for naught if they lose this game. They're looking to make their second ever title game appearance. They made it once before without winning the championship. But I tell you, I do want to recognize for Olympian, Andrell Snowden. This guy coming off a game last week in which he gained over 300 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns against Chula Vista. Not bad for a guy who wasn't even the starter to start the season, but only became so when the starter Manny Montano went down with an injury, so they may have found themselves a diamond in the rough with Andrell.
That's the next man in philosophy. That's if you want to be a successful high school football program, that's what you have to have. You have to have guys ready to step up at a moment's notice.
And speaking of stepping up, and now it's time for you to step up, my friend. We're going to let this live look go, brought to you by PlayOnSportsNetwork.com, and we're going to move on to our weekly segment, FNL 5, baby. That's when we put our man, Steve Spiewak, on the hot seat and ask him, you guessed it, 5 questions. You've got the first one.
Steve, this is not one of our 5, but did you move into your hot seat?
I have to stay on my toes the entire show with you guys.
Yeah, because you never know what's going to come out of our pretty little mouths.
Put the burrito down and pay attention to what we got to ask you. You ready?
I'm ready, baby.
All right, here we go. We've talked about how playoffs have started in about half the country. What team that is maybe one of the higher-ranked teams in the country do you think has the toughest road to go to win a state title?
I think it's any team that plays in Ohio's Division I, St. Ignatius, St. Edwards, Colerain. I think this is the toughest bracket in the country, with the possible exception of Texas Class 5A. This bracket is just loaded because you have teams battling it out in the northeastern part of the state, in the Cleveland area. You see St. Ignatius here. Then you have teams in the southwest part of the state, in Cincinnati, the Colerain, the St. Xavier's. And then you have teams from the central part of the state that nobody hears about in those other two areas that come playoff time. You have a team like Pickering Central, Pickerington North that will come in and they'll surprise a team from Region 1 or Region 4. So, yeah, any team in Division 1 in Ohio has a very, very difficult road to a state title.
Okay, question number 2. What rematch would you like to see in the playoffs that we've already seen during the season?
Personally, I would like to see Burns versus Gaffney. These two teams have traded monumental upsets over the last 2 seasons. Last year, Burns was the heavy underdog to a nationally ranked Gaffney team that looked almost unbeatable last year, and they shocked Gaffney, avenging an early season defeat, and won the Class 4A Division I state title. This year, Burns was riding high for much of the season. They were ranked in our top 5 until Gaffney, which had not looked very particularly strong earlier in the year, Gaffney showed out and beat Burns in another major, major upset. So the two teams have broken each other's hearts and national title hopes over the last 2 seasons. And so I'd be really curious to see them do battle again come this playoffs.
I just hate it when hearts are broken.
They are in sports every day.
Me.
Hey, Steve, we know that you, when not on Friday Night Live here, go to a lot of high school football games. We also have some insight that you don't very often pay for them, whether it's a media credential whether he's hanging out with Cam Newton and getting in for free. But I do want to ask you, if you had to pay for a game, is there one player in the country that you say, you know what, it's worth it for me to go pay to see this kid play?
I would certainly pay the price of admission to see Vista Marietta, do everything. Sua Cravens, he's a defensive star. He's committed to USC, where he will likely play safety, but he also plays linebacker at the high school level. Not to mention special teams, running back, receiver. He pours the Gatorade during halftime. He does everything. And he's just really, really explosive. Even on offense, he's kind of an explosive guy. Defense is his calling card, though, for sure. Just disruptive. You see him getting into the backfield, snagging interceptions, sacking the quarterback, tackles for loss. He does it everything, and you never know when he's going to rip off a big play because he plays all the time. So offense, defense, or special teams, he's always on the field, and there's always a chance he's going to do something special.
All right, well, there's only one more regular season game left for them, so get on Craigslist and see if you can get your tickets, okay?
Now. All right, here you go. Which city in the United States plays the best brand of football?
Well, according to our somewhat scientific rankings...
scientific. How about that?
We have Cincinnati on the Queen City. This changes a little bit if you start to include kind of suburbs and just media markets. But if you're looking for city, proper districts and city lines, it's really tough to beat Cincinnati. Teams like St. Xavier, Colerain, Moeller, Elder, LaSalle, just some very, very good private school programs and some outstanding public school programs. And these teams are always a factor in the playoffs in the state of Ohio. People love their football in Cincinnati. It is a great sports town. They're passionate about college sports and professional sports as well, but it's particularly great for high school big schools.
I just have to shout out our guys behind the scenes for this
it's a nice
graphic here.
Yeah.
It's great.
We don't
I love it.
And I will tell you that I want to make sure that we reinforce what Steve just said, and you can read about this on MaxPreps.com. That was a graphic that was done in this scientific report that was done based on just the city that it came from. When you look at metropolitan areas, as soon as Steve started talking about it, my phone started blowing up because all my friends in Miami were like, where's Miami football? How are we not on there? But if you look at MaxPreps.com, they do a separate ranking for metropolitan areas, and that's where you can see that Miami is the 6th best football in the country when it comes to that.
Don't be offended, anyone.
Right.
Don't be offended. There's a rhyme and reason to everything that we do out here.
No doubt. Steve, we got one more question for you. You talked earlier in the show about a 21-yard field goal made by a young man with autism to win the game for his team. Last week we talked about a 67-yard field goal, 1 yard short of the longest field goal in high school football history. Which one of them to you is more impressive?
Well, they're both special in their own way, but I have to take the 67-yard field goal. The amazing thing to me about the 21-yard field goal by Anthony Sturego is that, he's their regular kicker, and that's a kick he makes. For him, it was a clutch moment, and it was a big kick, but I think they expected him to make that kick. Autism or not, he did a great job. But the 67-yard kick is something you will almost never see, on any level of football, let alone high school, where there's so many variables to the kicking game that often do not come together for a successful kick. So I have to take the 67-yarder.
Thank you very much for sitting in the hot seat once again every week, but I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. I'm going to go with the 21-yard kick.
This is MaxPreps Friday Night Live, powered by American Family Insurance.